Good afternoon to all. We are in the second technical session. Hello. 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 Hello.
So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much. Perhaps this is my first Central State University, and so far I remember, I think last year, sorry, this year in the month of February, also I think there were also a workshop where I delivered a lecture on student diversity. So far I remember that was the topic. So I have been requested to deliver a lecture on transformational versus of the leadership behavior, the success and the failure of an organizations depends to a greater extent. So therefore, researchers who have dealt with the leadership behavior, they have put their importance on the relationship between the leadership style and the behavior. Because it is on the basis of that, the job satisfactions, and also how we are going to influence the behavior of the members of the organizations who are working within the organization. So therefore, that now I would just like to give you two important definitions on leadership. So this is one of the very important definitions on leadership. You just look at the GLOBE, that is the global leadership and the organizational effectiveness. How it defines leadership. So let us look at it. It says that leadership means the ability of an individual to influence, motivate, and help others to contribute towards effectiveness and success of organization in which they are the members. So therefore, leadership behavior is very much the importance because the basis for the leadership behavior, as I said in the beginning, the success and the failure of the organizations, the growth, the decline of the organizations highly depends. Just go to the next definition. The next, what it says. Leadership means the process by which one individual influences the other members to attainment of defined group or organizational goals. These are the two important definitions, and I hope by these two definitions we have understood what does actually leadership actually talk about. And now there are, of course, the different peoples in different parts of the world how they try to understand about leadership. That we are not going to take it up. Now, let me just now come to the transactional leadership. Transactional leadership. As I said, I will first try to draw your attention on transactional leadership. So you see, the transactional leadership. What is it's the style of leadership? Just look at the kind of leadership that tries to motivate the and the influence the employees or the members of the organizations by giving rewards when they perform well and also punishment when they fail to perform the targets. So this is the main idea associated with the transactional the leadership. So therefore, that sometimes it is because of that when it comes to the field of management and public administration, then it is a very much the managerial approach. This leadership is very much based on managerial approach because when we say managerial approach, the managerial approach of management basically the emphasizes on formal structures, the written rules and regulations, and also it emphasizes on a strong supervisions and the performance and the outcomes. How my performance is, what is my outcomes, based on that only, that the organizational behavior is actually defined. So therefore, it is also associated with the idea of the managerial the leadership. Now, let us now look at the core assumptions of the transactional leadership. What does it actually talk about? See, that people perform their best when the chain of command is definite and clear. That means transactional leadership, one of the key principles, it says, look at when people perform their best, that means it's because of what? The chain of command. There is a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy. When we say chain of commands, that means there is a hierarchy. So it is because of the chain of command that the people actually they perform their best. And the second thing that apart from that also that we have to consider the provisions of what reward and punishment because this reward and punishment actually ultimately motivate the workers. Whether it is true or not, towards the end we'll try to make a comparative the evaluation of the two theories with reference to some questions that I have already told you. Towards the end of my lecture, I will try to give the questions to you. The third thing you that says that the leaders who lead the organizations, I mean the leaders who lead the organizations, they must be obeyed by the subordinates. They must be obeyed by the subordinates. Sometimes even they want without raising any questions. Raising any questions. They cannot raise any questions. When the leader is saying something that must be carried forward and executed. Otherwise, if somebody fails, to do so, that means there is every possibility for what? Punishment. Sometimes even they face retrenchment also. That is also there is a possibility. And of course, that is the subordinate, they need to be carefully monitored to ensure so that the expectations are met. Because without the belief that the subordinates they are to be properly monitored, because without monitoring, they always maintain a suspicion. They always maintain a suspicion that those who are working, particularly at the lower level of the hierarchy, they may not, they may not be performing well. So until they are strictly monitored, until and unless they are strictly monitored, that they will not actually meet their expected goal. So these are the core assumptions of the transactional theory. Now, look at the German sociologist Max Weber, who was the first person actually to have coined the idea of transactional leadership. Now, Max Weber is also very much associated with the idea of modern day bureaucracy. Modern day bureaucracy. And so therefore, Max Weber, the concept of leadership concept is basically centered around three ideal types of authority based on legitimacy. We talk about three different kinds of authority. The first one is traditional authority, the second one is the charismatic authority, and the third one is the legal rational authority. And why he is associated with the transactional leadership? It is because out of these three different types of authority, he preferred legal rational authority. Why? Now, let us now try to look at it. Traditional authority is primarily based on what? Customs, beliefs. Say, for example, if I have parents, obviously, I pay my due respect to my parents. I pay my due respect. I pay my due respect to the elderly persons. So this is based on what? Customary practices. This is based on customary practices. So now, what he says that one of the important problems associated with this trade authority, and someone is, the basic is leadership on the basis of this traditional legitimacy is that, suppose, how can I expect all the students to pay respect to me? Sometimes we see the children they do not pay their respect to their parents. Sometimes, you may see children they do not respect to their elderly persons. Now, if as a child I do not pay respect to my parents, there is no any law which can punish me. There is no any law which can punish me. So, therefore, the basic problem associated with what we say authority is that even someone violates the customs also, that you cannot take impunity to the legal actions against them. Suppose, as a teacher, if I do not perform well, because my performance in the, my regularity and performance, well performance in the class also are equally important. Otherwise, students will not respect me. If the if the parents misbehave with their children at home and outside the home, I can expect that the children will ultimately, they pay respect to the parents, to the elderly persons. But what he says that the basic problems actually is associated with this is that you cannot take any legal or against, you cannot take any legal actions or punitive actions against those who are not giving convictions to these customary practices. The second one is the charismatic authority. So someone when is believed to be having the charisma is having some, that is, some, the personality, visions, and ability to inspire the others. So he is generally believed to have charismatic, leadership. The problem with this, once again, is that a person may be a charismatic leader to me. The same person may not be a charismatic leader to you. Prime Minister Narendra Modi may be a charismatic leader to me. But for those who do not believe in BJP, so he is not a charismatic person. Sonia Gandhi is a charismatic, the person. But the other, but of course, in some cases, say for example, in England, royal family, there is no any contradiction among the people of that is among the English people, particularly who are living in England, that see that is royal family is undoubtedly having the charismatic leadership. Even Please don't take another risk. Now, in the present situations, among the tribal chiefs of Tripura, Maharaja Pradeep Palikar Dabbarman is seemed to be one of the charismatic leaders. But again, I am telling you, those who do not believe, he may not be a charismatic leader. Say, for example, those who are in opposition, Rapati Mohan Tripura, who once member of parliament, and a member of parliament representing BJP, he's having some the contradictions with him. So to him, he may not be a charismatic leader. So the problem here is that again with the charismatic leader is that there is no consensus. So that is the reason why if I respect someone as a charismatic leader, that is my own personal issue. But if somebody does not, I cannot force him and I cannot take any legal actions against him. So therefore, when the organizations, according to Max Weber, is based on either on these two theories, I mean the two types of authority, that is legal, sorry, that is the traditional authority or the, that is the charismatic authority, there is a problem. So that is why what he says today that the leadership must be based on the legal rational authority. In organization, he is actually talking about bureaucracy as an idle type. Why this is an idle type? Because rules are written. The rules are written. So therefore, it's structure in nature. The rules are written, so therefore, what is my duty? What are your responsibilities are well defined. And if somebody so therefore violates, so there is every possibility to take any actions on the basis of the written rules and regulations. So that means we're very much, the concern, we're very much guided by the written structure, rules and regulations. And there is no scope. There is no scope to go beyond this. So therefore, German sociologist Max Weber, he is believed to have first coined the idea of the transactional leadership, emphasizing on the formal structural the relationship between the workers or the employees and the leadership leading the organization from the front. Next, that there are also many others actually who have been associated with this idea, like Frederick Taylor in the management and the field of public administration. He is basically associated with the theory which is known as the scientific theory of management. Now, what does actually he talks about? He says that in order to have growth and the productivity of organizations, you may be having necessary, that is the necessary, the uh, requirements at your disposal. What he says, suppose, say, for example, now to run an organization, what he says that you need financial capital, you need human resource, and you need machines. So he says that when you have these three basic requirements, an organization is normally expected to witness the growth and thus to have the volume of productivity. But what he says is sometimes, despite having these three basic requirements also at your disposal, he says that many organizations are not able to see the growth of the organization. That means there is a decline in the productivity of the organization. Why does that happen? It is because the leadership is not scientific. The management is actually scientific. Now, what does it talk about scientific? What is the basis of the scientific leadership? What is the basis of the scientific, the management? So therefore, what he's saying to me is that he said to me, the first is that you have to shift the decision-making power from the workers to the management. So what does he say is that he says that no, you cannot have a participatory system of what decision-making process. The decision has to be taken at the top level. Decision have to be taken top level, and the workers are simply those who work at the lower level of the organization have to carry out those decisions only. So he's also therefore associated with transactional leadership because the way that the Max Weber is actually talking about is emphasizing on the same thing. The same thing also that talking about performance-based incentive, the way that Max Weber was actually talking about. So in the same manner, he's also talking about if you perform well, then only you are likely to get some more incentive. Suppose three or four of us are actually given some work, and someone has done the work better than me or faster than me, so therefore, to encourage the others, that some extra incentive may be given to the one who has done the work faster than the others two among the three. And scientific selection of the employees. It is, this is very much important. Why this is important? Say, for example, I'm just giving you the example for understanding is that suppose if I'm having construction sites, I need some workers. Now, when we go to Bottala, at Bibi Bazaar, you will find at 9:30, at 10, you will find so many workers. Now, simply when I go, I'm having a construction work at my home, so I need some workers. So simply I have pickup. Simply I have pickup. He says that the process of selection is actually not scientific. Why? Because the kind of specialization actually required, I did not actually verify whether they are having this kind of specialization in order to complete my work in time. So as a result, what happens says that if the process of the selection, the leader is selecting the leaders on the basis of what, not having any scientific basis, ultimately what will happen? The work will not be completed in time, and if it is completed also, the quality will not be maintained. The quality will not be maintained. So therefore, it says that the scientific selections of the employee and screening of them is very much actually essential. And leaders, for therefore, what he says that the primary objective is to maximize efficiency and productivity. So the maximization and increasing the productivity is also very much dependent upon the scientific selection process of the employees. And last, providing rigorous training to the employees. That after the selecting the employees, simply if they are assigned the work without giving them any scope for further training, so ultimately what will happen? They may not be able to cope up with the new environment. That means they will not be able to happen, they will not be able to happen adaptability to the new environment. So that's why he also talks about rigorous training to be given to the employees. That is, he's actually talking about the leaders, that how he has to act in a scientific manner. And the next, let us come to the transformational leadership, how we actually understand. And I hope that we have understood about transactional leadership. And now transformational leadership, when we'll be understanding this, I hope that we'll be able to make a difference. And then we'll try to do what NFP actually stands for. NFP 2020. Now, it's the idea of the transformational leadership is very much contrary to the idea of the external leadership. So now it says that it is a leadership style where the leader, instead of coercing the employees, instead of having suspicion towards the employees, rather, leaders, they try to inspire and motivate the team by creating a clear vision. In case of the transitional leadership, the leader does not even discuss about the vision of the organization clearly because he doesn't have trust. He rather maintain a suspicion. He rather maintains the suspicion. Here, what the leader says that until and unless the vision of the organization is not clear to all the members of the organizations, then how is it possible to carry out the vision? So therefore, what he further said, in order to motivate and inspire the leader, sorry, that is the employees working with the organization, he rather prefers to first discuss about the visions and make them clear that these are the organizational goals, and then encourage how to have innovations. And also, let me just tell you one thing is that in case of the transactional leader has suspicion towards the other. So therefore, he doesn't believe in the innovating idea of the employees. So later, the innovation is being kept reserved only for the leaders. ये हम देखेंगे, ये आप लोगों का काम नहीं है, ये सिर्फ मेरा काम है. But here what he does, no, every one of us will have to think how to have new ideas, innovation, innovation based on the vision of the organization. And then, of course, that fostering the personal growth, which is very much important. If by joining an organization, my career remained completely stagnant. I started as an assistant professor. Even after 10 years also, if you continue to remain as assistant professor without any scope of promotion, then obviously you will feel very much dissatisfaction will be there. Now, somebody may be encountering problems. maybe because of the lack of publication or because someone is not able to have participation in the faculty development programs. So in order to fulfill the requirements, transformational leaders, it's the leaders, whether it is the principal, the vice chancellor, or the higher education institution, they will have to provide the scope. If somebody is not having the PhD degree, so therefore he or she must be given the scope. And the scope must be given in line. And if there is a bureaucratic pressure, no, you have to do your faculty development program. Please don't take our advice. Or you have to do your PhD program without hampering your normal duties. Now, how will you do it? How will you do it? It is not possible. Therefore, until and unless there is no scope for personal growth now, so therefore, first professional leadership it says to encourage and motivate the employees. So obviously that you have to take into consideration the scope of personal growth of the employees also. Otherwise, it's very much difficult to encourage them. And also it says that you have to build trust and enthusiasms. You have to build trust and enthusiasms. And helping people to exceed their expectations with positive changes together. And next, believe in the effectiveness of the informal structure. This is very much important. In case of the transactional leadership, that it is very much a structural in nature. The basis is only on the basis of the written rules and regulations. But transformational leadership says no. Beyond the written rules and regulation also, we have to expect, we have to consider the informal aspects also, which actually govern our love, feeling, and emotions. Our emotional attachment towards the organizations. Our emotional attachment towards the organization. Suppose, I'm just giving you the example for our understanding is that, suppose after coming to the university, if somebody feels sick, so now if I approach the authority, sir, I'm not feeling well, so kindly please allow me. Now the authority says, लेकिन half CL, half C. Okay? So what you will feel ultimately? What you will feel? Okay? And that is, so therefore, that transformational leadership is actually, so therefore, in terms of, the ideas we have seen, the transformational leadership and the transactional leadership are very much contrary to each other. Now, there are so many, the scholars who were associated with the transformational, leadership. So let us now first consider Nelson Moa, who is known as the father of the human relation movement. Very much the popular. He was the first one, in fact, to have raised his voice in the transactional leadership. It is the transactional leadership, the growth, the productivity, it increases for a certain time. But when it reaches a level, ultimately what happens? It starts going down. Now, how? Nelson Moa is one of the scholars who was associated with the human relation movement, and he was also associated. That you see, he conducted research. The experiments that he conducted is known as the Hawthorne experiments in the Chicago, United States of America. 3,000 workers from 1954 to 1930. Now, before that, let us now look at now what he says that Elton Mowa, he believed in human relation approach. It is very much important to understand the emotions. Suppose I said, अरे मुझे तो ठीक से बीमारी लग रहा है आज. If somebody approaches me and says that मुझे अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है और घर में किसी को बीमारी हो गया, मुझे अभी तुरंत घर में जाना चाहिए. ठीक है ना? So, Elton Mowa said that the leader will have to understand. Because if I detain you ultimately, you will not get good outcome. Because his mind is now very much emotionally associated with the person who is actually suffering from some disease. And when you are encountering some problems, physical problem at home also. Even if I force you also, he says that no, it will not be productive. It will not be productive because you are not feeling well. You are not feeling well. Now the question is that if somebody really comes to you also, sir, आज भी मुझे बीमारी जैसा लग रहा है, मुझे जाना चाहिए. There need to be observation. There need to be observation. Okay. So therefore, the second one is the non-economic awards. Actually, I'm sorry that I have to tell one thing is that yes, I have already told you that economic awards is one of the important characteristic of the transactional leadership. He said no, इकोनॉमिक अवार्ड ठीक है मुझे पैसा जरूरत है I need money but money always does not work money always does not work पैसा से सब काम नहीं होते so इसलिए उन्होंने कह रहे कि नॉन इकोनॉमिक रिवॉर्ड्स बहुत जरूरी है what is the non economic reward मुझे आज बीमारी लग रहा है और someone is sitting you know the experiencing I have received a phone call that someone is you know sick at home and he or she needs to be hospitalized immediately. Now, allowing him or her, that is one of the examples of non-economic reward. Understanding the emotion. And the next, the social men. We're after all social beings. I cannot live in isolation. I cannot live in isolation. I, as a leader, running an institution either as a principal, the vice chancellor, I cannot run alone. I cannot run alone unless the other employees of the organization do not come forward. So I must think that they were social beings. We're social beings. So we have to live the needs of the society. And when we live in the midst of the society, so obviously we need to understand each other. So that is very much important. And finally, that organization is a social system. It is a social system because after all, you know, it is very much dependent upon the social bonding. Social bonding. अगर कोई social bonding नहीं है, if there is a continuous mistrust, misunderstanding, किसी ने किसी के पीछे हमेशा लग रहा है, you cannot expect the growth of the organizations. You cannot expect the growth of the organization. So, on the basis of this, that he conducted the Hawthorne experiments, 4 different kinds of experiments that he conducted at the Western Electric Company in Chicago. Let us now look at the first experiments, that is the illumination experiments. क्या होता है? Under the transactional leadership, they argue that when the working condition is good, so that means you can expect better productivity. Now, Antonio was even when you have the good productive, the working condition also, you cannot expect good growth, you cannot expect the productivity of the organization. So he is completely telling the opposite. When the transactional leadership talks about that, when there is a good working condition, so that means that will automatically not increase. That is the hypothesis. But he has tested this hypothesis now with the help of this illumination experiment. What he did here, he divided the workers into 2 different groups. 2 different groups. Now, the first group where the constant flow of light was actually, and the other group where there is no light. There is no light. So here what he says that when you have the constant flow of light, that means your working condition is better than the other group where there is a darkness, there is no flow of light. So obviously, the working group where you have given the constant flow of light is expected to have better performance, is expected to have more productivity than the others, than the other group. Surprisingly, what he noticed that there is no any change in terms of productions. Why? It says that because the workers who are divided into 2 groups, they know very well that we are working under the same leadership style. We are working under the same leadership style. So आज मुझे लाइट दिया गया, लेकिन कल ये बंद कर सकता है, वहां पर दे सकता है. So लीडरशिप जो है, इनका अंदर हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, वो तो अलग नहीं है, वो तो अलग नहीं है, same. So therefore, they are always working under fear, under the word punishment, under the apprehension that they are likely to be punished. So that kind of fear they prevail. So that is why he says no. Ultimately, not here. The leaders need to understand the emotions. What is the understanding? What is there? There is the feelings about the leaders. That means There is a lack of understanding based on what? Humanism. Humanism is actually lacking here. So that is, and the second one is that the relay assembly, the rest. Here, again, what he did here, suppose a group of workers, they're actually working, where they were asked to perform from 10 to 5 p.m. without any rest hours, without any rest hours. Now, what he did here is, okay, now you have the rest hours, you take rest for 1 hour, you take rest for 1 hour, then what he noticed, yes, after getting the rest hour, there is an increase in productivity. That means there's a feeling of love. But after some time, what happens in the second phase of the experiments, what he did, he decided to withdraw the rest hours. Whether withdrawing the rest hour and taking them to the station actually has any impact on them, on their performance. He has found surprisingly, even after withdrawing working hours, that means they are taking back to their previous position also, there is no any change. That means they started to continue. Why? Because here, he says that the one who is actually interacting with them is very much close to them, is very much close to them. So there is a strong interpersonal relationship between the one who is supervising them and the workers or the employees who are actually working. So therefore, what he says that even you improve the working condition, but if there is a strong supervision, tight control, so that means they feel very much the fear that at any moment there may be punishment, or they may even face transfer also. But on the other hand, when there is a cordial atmosphere, good understanding between the leaders and the employees who work, he says that even if you withdraw the rest hours and ask them, you will feel some of the workers even have now, they are very much close with the leaders. They can approach at any moment. When the leaders will say, अरे ये काम तो अभी तक नहीं हो पाए सर कोई बात नहीं है हम लोग कर देंगे आप चिंता मत कीजिए आप चिंता मत कीजिए हम लोग कर देंगे. That is the feeling what actually he has noticed here. And the third one is the monthly program where some female workers were actually interviewed. Where actually some female workers were interviewed. Here also what he says, when the female workers were actually interviewed, they were in advance were informed that yes, we are coming and going to interview you. We are going to give you some questions, and the questions were given in advance to them. So obviously, what happened that there was a jubilation, feeling, what that is the feeling of victory. Now, what they are actually feeling that if our leaders actually behaves with us in this way, the way that we were actually behaved previously. Now, in the same manner, if we are behaved, the way the one is actually interviewing them, in the same manner, if our leader actually behaves with us, then it's a feeling of what? Jubilation. It's a feeling of celebration. So therefore, they are expecting that the leaders actually must behave in a way that the interviewer is actually behaving with them, because the interviewer has already provided them the schedule that they are coming, what are the the reasons, and what are the questions that he or she is likely to ask them. So that is the reason why. And the last one is the bank building observation rules, actually where he tried to determine and analyze the social organization actually at work. Sometimes what happens, what he says that if you say the worker, भैया ये काम आज खत्म कर दो, ठीक है? हाँ, 5 yes, it is now 5 o'clock. फिर भी आज ये खत्म कर दो बेटा, कोई बात नहीं, इसके लिए हम एक्स्ट्रा पैसा दे दें. But sometimes what happens is the worker won't do that because they have an internal understanding among them. They have an internal understanding among them. And also what he says is, अगर ये काम आज खत्म कर देंगे, कल तो मुझे काम नहीं मिलेगा. I will be jobless tomorrow. So you may be giving me extra 300 rupees, but if I do not complete and work for tomorrow, I will have two options. पर डे कितना मुझे मिलता है? 500 रुपये. इसके लिए 300 रुपया 300 ज्यादा मुझे मिल जाएगा. आज तो मुझे 500 रुपया मिल रहा है, तो कल भी मुझे 500 रुपया मिल जाएगा. इसके लिए कितना मुझे ज्यादा मिल रहा है? 200 रुपये ज्यादा मिल रहा है, और मुझे और एक्शन मिलेगा, क्या ऑप्शन मिलेगा? अरे इसी समय में हम और दूसरा एक जगह में काम ढूंढेंगे, वो भी ऑप्शन मुझे मिल रहा है. So then what they do, they try to suppress their actually the working ability based on their internal understanding. Now what we say, Noah says that the base on this, that the basis is that understanding the closer coded relationship between the leaders and the employees. And also that formal structures, rules of regulation are no doubt important, but what is actually most effective and important is to have and build in the informal structures, which is very much the important. Okay, and then let us now try to go to Chris Igris. Chris Igris also one of the scholars associated with these professional, the leadership idea. Chris Igris is associated with the theory called the immaturity to maturity theory. हम लोग किसको immature हम लोग किसको immature मानता है? The one who is not able to take decision, the one which very much the not firm, dependent upon others. तो हम लोग क्या मानते हैं? Immature है, बच्चा जैसे है, बच्चे जैसे है, फायदा जब होता है, they are very much dependent upon the others, so therefore they are immature. है ना? What happens? Even in fun, the way that he or she is, the born and the process of the gymnasium starts, he or she, ये भी क्या, with the internal and external environment परिचित हो जाता है, परिचित हो जाता है. So धीरे धीरे वो सीखता है, धीरे धीरे वो सीखता है, एक्सपीरियंस ज्यादा होता है, एक्सपीरियंस ज्यादा होता है. लेकिन Chris Ives became a strong critic of the transform, that is the transactional leadership. किस लिए? He says that most of the organization under the transactional leadership, what they want? They want expectation, from me, just like a mature one. अरे हम तो नया ज्वाइन किया है, हम जैसे अभी एक्सपीरियंस टीचर है, I am having more than 22 years experience. So if somebody joins on the very first day, if the organization or the leadership expect the same kind of performance, and the same one just like a mature person, how can you expect it? And if you start behaving with the same person who has joined, who is still to be familiar with the organizational structure, rules and regulations of the organization also. What happened? The great administration in most of the traditional systems of administration, that is the transactional, the leadership, transactional organization, what happens that the leaders, they expect the same kind of document even from the immature one also. Even from the immature one also. So as a result, what happens, just look at it, that it clashes with the adult's natural right to maturity, that how you will become independent, self-directions, and these aspects, they still leading to employees' frustration. Ultimately, what will happen? 2-3 दिन के बाद और 2-3 महीने के बाद मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगेगा. I will not feel. I will not, because the organization is not giving me any step to mature myself. That is the problem. That ultimately, the Chris agrees also with the help of the maturity theory that see that Chris agrees with a strong critique of the transitional the leadership. And then Abraham Maslow needs hierarchy theory. Abraham Maslow, what he says is that we the human beings, we have some, and these are very much hierarchical in nature, in a pyramid structure. Like the last one is the self-actualization need. What is that? Realizing one full potential personal growth and a meaningful one. Now, Abraham Maslow says that nobody can expect to have the last need, that is the self-actualization need, unless we are not able to fulfill one. That is the, where is, yes, this is the psychological needs. Psychological needs means pay, food, shelter. जहाँ पर मुझे कोई खाने का कोई मौका नहीं है, मुझे कोई shelter नहीं है, मुझे कोई pay नहीं है, तो हम कैसे अपना potential realization करने के लिए हम सोच पाएंगे? That is not possible. That is not possible. So therefore, what he says that that needs are very much in the pyramid in a structure. Of course, we can criticize Abraham Maslow's also. That is not that the absolute the truth also. That what happened here, to fulfill the psychological need, what the leaders have to do, ensure fair wages. फेयर वेजेस हम काम कर रहे हैं किसी को ज्यादा दे रहे हैं किसी को कम दे रहे हैं लेकिन एक ही काम कर रहे हैं ये तो अच्छा नहीं है ये तो और हम दोनों काम कर रहे हैं लेकिन काम करने के बाद कोई पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है कोई पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है तो कहाँ है सेफ्टी नहीं कहाँ है फूट नहीं तो कैसे मोटिवेट करेंगे आप इसलिए उन्होंने कह रहे हैं ये बहुत जरूरी है सेफ्टी नीड्स security, stability, and the freedom of fear, freedom from fear. आपका पास अभी खाना है, शेल्टर है, और आपके पास में सब कुछ है, लेकिन क्या है? फ्रीडम फ्रॉम fear नहीं है. Freedom from fear. There is a strong supervision. There is every possibility for what? Retrenchment. आपको निकाल दिया जाएगा. आपको निकाल दिया जाएगा. So, you are always working under fear. कैसे? इसलिए उन्होंने कह रहे इस हाल में क्या है? सिक्योरिटी नहीं है आपका पास. आपका पास कोई स्टेबिलिटी नहीं है. क्योंकि आज है कल आपको निकाल दिया जा सकता है. कोई स्टेबिलिटी नहीं है. तो अगर आप इसी एनवायरमेंट में आप काम करेंगे कैसे? प्रोडक्टिविटी आपको ज्यादा होगा. प्रोडक्टिविटी नहीं होगा क्योंकि आप फियर में काम कर रहे हैं ना. तो इसलिए उन्होंने कह रहे यहाँ क्या जॉब सिक्योरिटी देने का बहुत जरूरत है. जॉब सिक्योरिटी देने का बहुत जरूरत है. सेफ एनवायरमेंट एंड क्लियर पॉलिसीज. क्लियर पॉलिसीज मतलब पॉलिसीज जो है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में वेरी मच दे आर वेल डिफाइंड, वेरी मच क्लियर है. And here the next one is social affection, connection, acceptance. Very much important. हम काम कर रहे हैं उसके लिए कोई रिकॉग्निशन नहीं मिल रहा है, उसके लिए कोई एक्सेप्टेंस भी नहीं हो रहा है, एक्सेप्टेंस कोई नहीं हो रहा है और कनेक्शन भी हम कर नहीं पा रहे हैं. तो ऑटोमेटिकली फीलिंग ये ग्रो होगा, अरे काम करने से क्या फायदा होता है? कुछ फायदा नहीं होता है, कुछ फायदा नहीं हो रहा है. तो किस लिए हम तो इसलिए उन्होंने कह रहे कि यहाँ पर लीडरशिप लोग क्या होगा पोस्टरिंग वर्क. अगर हम लोग टीम वर्क, लेकिन ट्रांजेक्शनल लीडरशिप में क्या हो रहा है? नो टीम वर्क, अपना काम आपको ही करना है. सो दे आर बीइंग केप्ट सेपरेटली, ठीक है. सो इंक्लूजन जरूर in a sense of that is very much the important. And the esteem needs that is self-respect, recognition, achievement, and the status. And self-actualization is the most important one. He says that when you fulfill all these, then only you have respect now, you have food now, you have shelter now, everything up to past there. Then only you can think, yes, potentiality that I have now can explore to help me realize what actually I am, how far I can actually reach. So he says that under the transitional leadership, leaders ने what they do, अरे हम पैसा दे देंगे, मेरा काम ये आप कर दे दीजिए, मेरा काम ये करिए, हाँ? और अगर आप एक्स्ट्रा टाइम में काम करेंगे उसके लिए हम पैसा दे देंगे. लेकिन ये कह रहे हैं कि पैसा हमेशा ही काम नहीं होता है. पैसा से हमेशा ही काम नहीं होता है. पैसा जरूरत है, लेकिन at some point of time, suppose if I'm working in an organization, मुझे ये कितना पैसा दे रहा है? 20,000 रुपया. और किसी एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में इस काम के लिए मुझे 15,000 रुपया दे देगा. हम क्या सोचेंगे? अरे 15,000 रुपया मेरे लिए भी काफी. अगर हम यहाँ पर रहेंगे हम तो जी नहीं सकते. तो लाइफ जस्ट स्पैन जो है ना ये तो रिड्यूस होगा. तो हम क्यों यहाँ रहेंगे? इसलिए उन्होंने क्या सोचेंगे? ठीक है 5,000 रुपया ठीक है, अगर नहीं मिलेगा कोई बात नहीं है क्योंकि 15,000 रुपये मेरे लिए काफी है, बस ठीक है हम छोड़ देंगे. लेकिन वो ना मिलना तब अगर ऑप्शन नहीं है, इसलिए आप यहाँ पे रहेंगे. लेकिन मन दूसरा जायगा में है, मन दूसरे जायगा में है, मेरा मन यहाँ पर नहीं है, क्योंकि साइकोलॉजिकली इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ मेरे को रिश्ता नहीं हो रहा है, कोई कनेक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, तो इसलिए उन्होंने कह रहे कि ये बहुत जरूरत है। Also, this is very much interesting. Douglas McGregor, he developed two theories, theory of X and the theory of Y. Very interesting. Theory of X. In the theory of X, what he says no, he has given two different kinds of this is the explanation about the human behaviors. Under the theory of X, he says that is with the theory of X is associated again with the transitional leadership. He says that are human being a nature lazy. They are not ready to take responsibility. They feel to be isolated. They prefer self-isolation. They prefer self-isolation. So, अगर ह्यूमन बिहेवियर ऐसा है तो उन्होंने कह रहा है कि लीडर का काम क्या करना होगा, कोर्स करना होगा, कोर्स करना होगा, because until and unless you do not coerce them, you do not control them, you do not monitor them, you do not give them responsibility by force, ultimately you cannot do anything. You cannot do anything. Okay? So, therefore, with the help of the theory of X, Douglas McGregor is associated with the transactional leadership. But coming to the theory of Y, he has given a different explanation about the human behaviors. उन्होंने कह रहे हैं कि अरे human beings by nature, by birth, are they lazy? Are the human beings lazy? By birth, so their nature actually. Lazy से जन्म पैदा होता है क्या? ये जब फायदा होता है उसी समय से लेजी होते हैं क्या? उन्होंने ये सवाल पूछा है अपने आप से. No, human beings are actually not lazy by nature. They are not by birth actually lazy. But when do they become lazy? They become lazy when they familiarize with the external environment. Number one. Number two also he says that the human beings sometimes they pretend themselves that sir, I do not think this works. So actually they know the work. Why? Because the leader actually is not giving specialization to him. Perhaps where I'm having the specialization, the leader is actually not assigning me that work. The work where I do not have the specialization, the leader is insisting me, आप ये काम कर दो, ये काम कर दो, ये आपके लिए काम है. तो आपका जहां पर स्पेशलाइजेशन है नहीं उधर हम नहीं चाहते, हम उधर देते. तो इसलिए उन्होंने कहा कि ह्यूमन बींग्स का इंस्टिंक्ट नेचर क्या है, लेजी नहीं है. सो लेजी कैसे ना होता है, बिकॉज ऑफ द वर्किंग एनवायरनमेंट. वर्किंग एनवायरनमेंट अच्छा नहीं है, इसलिए मुझे कह रहे कि सर ये नहीं होगा, ये होने ये नहीं होगा सर, क्योंकि यहाँ ये एनवायरनमेंट नहीं है. तो एम्प्लॉय ने यहाँ पर क्या करते हैं, जो पोटेंशियलिटीज जो प्रोस्पेक्ट जो है ये एक्सप्लोर करने के लिए कोई अटेम्प्ट नहीं लेता. क्यों? Because they think that this will be an extra burden on us. It will be an extra burden on us. He says that they do it because why? Human beings by nature, actually they prefer what? Autonomy. They prefer autonomy. So that means the potentiality that I have, now I have everything as per Abraham, the master is studying from 1 to 5 needs. Now I want self-exploitation. And this self-exploitation cannot happen if the leaders does not give autonomy. Because I have the ability to take decision at my own level. लेकिन आपने मुझे ये decision अपना लेवल में देने के लिए आप मुझे कोई मौका नहीं दे रहा है. क्योंकि जो हायरार्किकल स्ट्रक्चर है, हम कोई डिसीजन नहीं ले पाते हैं अपना लेवल में, और एक डिसीजन के लिए इसलिए कहा शुरू से होता है, इंतजार करना ही पड़ता है. तो इसलिए क्या होता है, डिले होता है, डिले होता है. तो डिले होते होते क्या हुआ, टाइम आ चुकी है, और हम लोग का देखता है क्या, वो मेरा काम जो पहले जो इम्पोर्टेंस तो है अभी कोई इम्पोर्टेंस नहीं है. So that means the work has lost its own significance. So therefore, he says that Douglas McGregor says that human beings They are not lazy. They want to work, but they need working environment. And one of the most important, the factor to have a proper, to have the cordial atmosphere, working atmosphere, is to provide them the autonomy, is to provide them recognitions, is to provide them recognitions. अगर आप recognition भी नहीं देंगे, कोई autonomy नहीं देंगे, तब तो they will start pretending नहीं है. You know, you have done, but you will pretend. That's he says. But when he makes the he says that any organization which is based on, that is theory of X, may have productivity, but at some point of time it will start encountering problems. So therefore, he has preferred theory of X, so the theory of Y, than the theory of X. So that means you can say, or we can say, Douglas McGregor also is actually associated with the transformational leadership. The next, oh, sorry. Then, Douglas McGregor, after that, there is one more, it is not written here. You just see. Oh, yes. This is, the Chester Barnard I have actually forgotten. This is also very much, the important. I'm supposed to discuss before actually that theory of action word. Anyway, now, Chester Barnard, he has written a book, The Functions of the Executive, where he has stated what should be the role of the executive, that means the leader, in an organization. And basically, organization actually is a cooperative social systems. Why? Because essentially, what is the basis of formation of an organization? हम लोग क्यों organization form करने के लिए जाता है? He says that we the human beings, as we are social animals, so therefore we cannot live in isolation. But he says that we encounter some limitations. What are these limitations? The first one is the environmental limitations. The second one is there is the physical limitation. एनवायरमेंटल लिमिटेशन जो एनवायरमेंटल जो लिमिटेशन है इसलिए हम अकेला ये नहीं कर पाएंगे. Similarly, physical limitation we have. So when individuals they see that the social environment and that the physical environment creates problem to us, but we have to do something. And what happened? They say that they come together. That means like-minded persons come together, and for the achieving some common goals. He says that then that creates a background of organization, formation of an organization. That is the background which creates an organization. So organization, it cannot be created by an individual. By an individual, it cannot run. So therefore, that is that suppose the sum of us together, like-minded persons, have come together. We have formed an organization. Now someone will have to lead the organizations. Someone will have to lead the organization as the leader. And this is what should be the role of the leader, executive. What is the role of the executive? Now, he says that someone will have to, because all of us are actually having the same position. Because we have to be we have the equal contribution. So everyone is having the equal contribution for the formation of the organization. Now, someone will have to lead the organization. Now, he says, what is the problem? The problem here is that among us, if we choose Sumanacharya, as the leader, now after choosing Sumanacharya as the leader, as the executive to lead the organizations, if Sumanacharya then starts forgetting us and starts behaving us as his subordinates, then what we will feel? अरे आप तो क्या हम लोग जैसे है जैसे थे ना, लेकिन ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कैरी फॉरवर्ड करने के लिए किसी को तो लीड करना होगा, इसलिए हम लोग आपको ये मौका दे दिया है. लेकिन if you start treating us as your subordinates, हम लोग क्या ये तो वॉलंटरी है, ठीक है, ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन यू प्लीज ओके रन देन विल, ठीक है, आप चला लो कोई बात नहीं, आप चला लो कोई बात नहीं, आप नहीं रहेंगे, हम नहीं रहेंगे यहाँ पर, ठीक है ना, because this is voluntary, we can leave the organization. So therefore, what he says today, that Chastabana says today, that when you talk about the role of the executive, what is actually important is the accepted theory of leadership, accepted theory of authority. What is it means then? Suppose I am teaching in the class, I am now being seated on a chair and giving the lectures, but my students are not listening me at all. They are not carrying forward at all. So that's the final thing today. What is the usefulness of this kind of? If I issue the orders, if my orders are not carried forward, are not executed, so that means if they are not executed, if they are not carried forward, that will not lead to the growth of the organization. So therefore, the orders have to be carried forward. Under the transactional leadership, what happened? पनिशमेंट प्रोविजन है अगर कैरी फॉरवर्ड नहीं करेंगे पनिशमेंट दे देंगे अगर परफॉर्मेंस अच्छा नहीं होंगे आपका सैलरी रिटेन किया जाएगा और उसके बाद भी कोई परफॉर्मेंस अच्छा नहीं है तो आपको ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में निकाल दिया जाएगा सो फिर साइकोसिस है ये लेकिन उन्होंने क्या कह रहे कि है एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी ऑफ अथॉरिटी है मतलब क्या है हम जो ऑर्डर जो दे रहा है ये ऑर्डर फेसफुली कैरी फॉरवर्ड हो जाता है लेकिन किसी ग्राउंड फॉर व्हाट इज द ग्राउंड ही सेज दैट leadership becomes acceptable and the orders thus are carried forward only under some circumstances क्योंकि हम लोग चार आदमी मिलकर एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन फॉर्म किया so therefore he says that the first condition is that when the decision is taken by the executive should not be against the collective goals of the organization. Should not be against the collective goal of the organization. This is very much important. Second thing is that we have formed this organization, of course, with an objective. What is that objective? Because I cannot fulfill one goal by my individual approach. So that is the reason why I need collective approach. I need collective approach. Okay, no? So that means with the collective approach, ultimately, I also want what? Self-actualization. I also want self-actualization. I also want to fulfill one of my objectives that is translated into action through the collective approach. So therefore, what he says is that the decision taken by the executive should not go against the interest of any member of the organization. This is very much vital. And lastly, what he says is that अगर आप कोई डिसीजन ले लेंगे ये डिसीजन फिजिबल होना चाहिए फिजिबल नहीं है क्यों ले लिया आप क्यों ले लिया आप तो फिजिबल तब ही होता है अगर आप कंसल्ट करके कोऑर्डिनेशन करके डिसीजन लेता है so therefore in such a situation only he says that the authority becomes acceptable then when the authority becomes acceptable he says that then it creates zone of indifference a zone where there is no any difference between the leader और सुमन जी के साथ लोग जो तीन जो जुड़े हुआ है इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ आप लोगों के पास कोई अभी कोई नहीं है कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है so hence the orders are actually carried forward and implemented properly so just the Barnett also is actually associated he's talking about organization as a cooperative social system with the personal leadership and then yes, this is the recent development in the beginning of the 21st century. Public administration management, that is new public service approach. Okay, service approach, new public service approach. So they are the two scholars who are actually associated with it. Denhard and Denhard, Robert, the and Janet Bin Denhard, they were associated with the University. Okay, so towards the end of the 19th, 20th century, they developed these new public service approach in directions to the new public management. That is the traditional approach or the transactional approach, which he says that now that instead of sharing controlling, manipulating. Rather, the role of the public servant. The role of the public servant, say suppose teacher, should be what? In case of our duty, to help the students instead of controlling them. Instead of controlling them. Okay? Instead of creating a fear psychosis. Hey, कोई सवाल नहीं होगा. कोई सवाल नहीं होगा. Instead of controlling them, rather what we should encourage. We should articulate. The reason why he says that the role of the public servant is to help citizens to articulate and meet their shared interest. And what is the basis here? So therefore, it places the citizens at the center of the government. लेकिन क्या होता है ट्रांजेक्शनल में जो लीडर जो है he is at the center of the government. Now here it's talking about the citizens. In case of the academic institution, students they are the first stakeholders. So therefore they should be at the center of governance. So therefore it believes in what? The democratic values. Instead of non-participatory and dictatorial the attitude, it believes in democratic values, accountability, and finally promotion of public interests. And finally, promotion of public interest. Now, let us look at the NEP 2020 on academic and administrative leadership. What it talks about. It says, should we base on our leadership on the transactional or should we base on transformational? As far as my understanding is that NEP is talking about that earlier our approach was based on transactional. Now, it is talking about that we have to make a paradigm shift from transactional to transformative leadership, whether academic leaders or the administrative leaders. Now, so therefore, it talks about that. It should be a student-centric approach. Earlier, it was not a student-centric approach, but it was a teacher-centric approach. I used to tell my students when we were studying at school during our time, rigorous punishment used to be there. Rigorous punishment used to be there. Student cannot ask any questions to the teacher. When the student will ask, will ask question to the teacher, there may be punishment. There may be possibility of punishment. And the most important thing was that teacher used to think the students are empty vessel. They do not know anything, and it is the teacher who is on the driver's seat knows everything. So therefore, whether there will be an accident, or there will be a betterment, everything depends upon the teacher. Everything depends upon the teacher. Now, when I say the teacher-centric approach, the student-centric approach, that means it needs to be participatory. We need to understand the feeling of the students. We need to understand the diversity presence among the students. A teacher in the class, if only appreciate a student who is good, according to him or her, based on what percentage of mark he or she obtains in the examinations, only appreciates him or her, he is basically associated with the traditional leadership style. So therefore, that means he doesn't understand the diversity is present. He doesn't understand the diversity is present among the students. So this is very much the important that having a paradigm shift now from that is the teacher-centric to student-centric approach. So as a result, what happens now? One of the important parameter in every higher educational institution is to maintain the mentor-mentee cell. Very much important. That mentor-mentee mechanism, so therefore, it's very much important. So that is about the teacher-centric, the student-centric education. And also, UGC also, that is the NEP, that is the UGC, through the NEP, is emphasizing the students. They are the first stakeholders, the alumni. Their opinions should be taken. They should be involved in the preparation of the syllabus. In the preparation of the syllabus. Earlier, what happened? Under this teacher-centric approach, teachers never used to notify in advance. Even the syllabus also. The students do not know what the topic that the teacher is going to do in the next time, in the next class. We are not notified. But now it is mandatory that we have to notify what I am actually going to teach in the next class. And we have to give the necessary study materials to them, to them. And we have to talk about adaptability and flexibility. Now, to make education more friendly to the students, then we have to become, adapted to the new technological changes, the introductions of the new technological tools, not necessarily simply just delivering the lectures about the students, but to make teaching more enjoyable among the students. Professor Srinivasan from NECA is a noted expert in this field. And sometimes, I had the opportunity to attend two of his classes. Now, the technological tools that he's actually talking about is very, very interesting with the puzzle. It's very interesting. Sometimes what we do generally, they say to the student, I am uploading one video. Please you go through this video. But video is very, very long. Students do not have the ability. So therefore, what is necessary, you can make the video short with the help of the 8 puzzles, only those interesting areas where the students are likely to have more concentration. So therefore, it says that we have to be adaptable and flexible and collaborative in the leadership. Now, if I am not supposed, that means I must have collaboration with others who are having in this field. But other way, so therefore, it is talking about what? Interdisciplinary. It is talking about interdisciplinary. I should not remain confined only within my subject. My subject areas are having, interconnectedness with the various disciplines. So therefore, I can learn, I can become more adaptable when I become flexible. Before, they were very much what rigid in nature. We're very much rigid in nature. And finally, there is the empathy, looking at with empathy and inclusivity, and the last one is the effective communication. Very much important, effective communication. Very much important, effective communication. As I said in the beginning now, so therefore, I would like to raise some questions. What actually we can do? Suppose you are a principal of the college. You are a principal of the college. Now you are already there in time at 10 o'clock. You are already in, and one of the group to put their attendance record enters late. The moment he or she enters the room, the principal or as a principal, no, you are late by 30 minutes, late by 1 hour. So therefore, you have to either go back or I will cut half CL. What will you do at that time? That is, this is very much associated with what? Transactional leadership, not transformational leadership. हमने देखा इसी situation. Then a group D worker who was actually delayed because of what traffic jam by 1 hour and entered late by 1 hour. He was up to the principals. Cannot do this. What she said, sir, आज मुझे ये हो रहा है, आपको भी तो हो सकता है, आपको भी हो सकता है ना, जब आपको होगा, तो आप हाफ सीएल ले लेंगे, हाफ सीएल ले लेंगे. So here the question is that, as a principle, actually, transformational leadership is the day. First, I will first. Why you are actually delayed? Is there any reason? There must be some reasons. There must be some reasons. So all of a sudden now, because you are very much guided by the formal structure and giving punishment and scolding in front of the others, do you think that the worker or the employee will be motivated? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. And similarly, when you are taking a class, we see open students also before coming to this, I attended one class. I have taken about 1 hour and 10 minutes. And a student entered just when I have actually finished my lecture. He said, sir, may I come in? Yes, come. Come. Now, I have to observe whether he is actually maintaining this train always or not. Now, if the student is having this train always, there must be some problem. So, as a teacher now, as a leader, academic leader, I'll have to approach him through the mentor-mentee mechanism, or we call him personally. क्या हुआ है बेटा? क्या हुआ है? आपको क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है हमेशा ही? आपका कोई प्रॉब्लम है क्या? अगर प्रॉब्लम है तो मुझे बता दीजिए ना. So what I did actually, because I have been teaching this, this for the last, the 7 and 8 years. So therefore, as a teacher, what actually I personally did, just now, student of the first semester who is about to complete his first semester exam very soon. When I went to Impulse last month, all of a sudden I have found that he has left the group. He has left the group. Then immediately from Impulse, I have given him a call. बेटा तुमने क्यों ग्रुप लेफ्ट किया है? सर, I will discontinue. क्यों discontinue करेंगे? What is the problem? Do you have any problem? अरे तुमको इतना एक अच्छा मौका मिला है, तुम क्यों discontinue? तुम्हारा पास कोई प्रॉब्लम है? अगर है तो बताओ मुझे, मैं तुम्हें और एक मौका दे रहा है. Then okay sir, of myself and next day I will inform. He has given me call in the evening, sir. Please admit me once. I have added. Now he is continuing. He is continuing. And there was one more student. She was in the third semester. All of a sudden, I have come to know from her friends that she will discontinue. I told her. Personally, they given her a call. What happened to you? You are now on the verge of completing. You just 6 months away from completing your course. What happened? Are you having any problems? I even, to make fun her. Are you having any boyfriend problem? Hey, she was laughing. No, no, sir. Then, are you having any money problem? No, sir. Then, okay. So if you do not have any problem, you continue. On the very next day, she came, attended the classes. Now she is a successful post. Another student now in the first semester from Simna, very much particular in the class. Sometimes, we even assume that he's taking, that is the intoxicants also, because his eyes are always, the red in color. One of my colleagues, they had suspicion towards him. Wonder what happened, because we have some, that is the structural requirement. That is, at least you'll have to attend this number of classes. Of course, we have some consideration. With the teacher, normally don't try to detain them. That is again based on the importance. That is the class commercial leadership. I told him, all the students, क्या हुआ है तुमको, तुम क्यों नहीं आ रहे हैं, क्या प्रॉब्लम है तुम्हारा, हाँ, what is, do you think that with this, the attendance, will it be possible on my side to put signature and forward your examination application, COE control examination? He got angry with me. Then and then what he did, no, by taking his back, he started going this way. And I went and stopped him. I went and stopped him. He needs to stop. Cool down. Then I stopped him. I have stopped you for only one reason. I told you this thing only for one reason, just for you to remain on. Do you think that if I say this thing, my salary will increase? My salary will be high? Or I will get less salary? No. Then you start thinking. What happened? He started crying. He started crying. मुझे गलती हो गया sir. He then has come forward in front of all and kneel down. Sir bless me. He is now regular to the classes. And I did not have to tell anything in the third semester that you are not eligible to sit in the examinations. You are not eligible to sit in the examination. So therefore, that transformational leadership says that we have to understand the diversity of the students. Very much important. Now, if I start always praising someone and start scolding the others in front of the others, they will feel dejected. They will feel dejected. And finally, I would like to give one more example. This is not my own. I have just learned it from a video. Okay, what happened? You might also have seen it in the Facebook also, because I actually prefer to see all these in the these fictional videos. One teacher is saying this, "Beta, छोटे बच्चे हैं. I am giving you two apples to you. If I give you two more apples to you, how many apples will you have?" She said, "Sir, I have five apples." I'm very much confusing. The other students are laughing, laughing. And again, he has repeated the teacher, "बेटा, इधर तुम्हें दो एप्पल दे रहा है और उसके बाद और एक दो एप्पल दे देंगे, कुल मिला के कितना हुआ है?" सी अगेन आंसर, अरे क्या मुश्किल है? Then later on what happened? Then बेटा आ जाओ, हम तुम्हें दो ऑरेंज दे रहे हैं, उसके बाद और तीन ऑरेंज दे देंगे, मिला के कितना हुआ है? पांच. जब एप्पल होता है चार होता है, जब ऑरेंज होता है पांच क्यों होता है? Then टीचर ने क्या किया है? जाके क्या हुआ है? क्या हुआ है? वेरी मच शॉक. बेटा तुमने क्यों? सर हमने चार पांच एप्पल क्यों किया? क्योंकि मेरे अंदर और एक एप्पल है. बैग के अंदर और एक एप्पल है. बैग के अंदर और एप्पल है, इसलिए हमने कहा है कि पांच एप्पल है. The teacher was very shocked. So the approach was based on transactional leadership. So this is the role of a teacher now, that we have to become adaptable and flexible in nature. If we are not able to become adaptable and flexible, we cannot be inclusive in nature, will not have proper communication, and thus if we do not have these, then the tools of education will never become student-centric. So we'll derail ourselves from the NEP 2020. So now it's up to us what we will do. So thank you very much. ठीक है. ठीक है. ओके ओके. नहीं, मेरे लिए ये अच्छा हुआ है, क्योंकि जो लास्ट मंथ जो हमने स्कूल में जो किया था ना, तो वहां पर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव 3 दिन वर्कशॉप हुआ था. हमने तो त्रिपुरा यूनिवर्सिटी में जो आप लोगों ने जो उनको ये फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट रिसोर्स moment, we were together. So that is also has given me an encouragement to accept that the moment they say that, sir, we'd like to see you deliver a lecture on transactional and transformational leadership, I took it very positive. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.